So I want to show this here, anatomy of the state. So most of you, maybe if you missed it, we're just mentioning how Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, ever woke, tweeted out Murray Rothbard, anatomy of the state. Libertarians and anarcho-capitalists were all hooting and hollering and freaking out. And on page 6, which is, the opening of Anatomy of the State, which Jack Dorsey himself posted, the greatest danger to the state is independent intellectual criticism. My, oh my.
Fine.
It's very interesting that Jack Dorsey would tweet something like that out, considering Twitter actively tries to suppress intellectual criticism of the state. Maybe Jack, he's actually locked in a basement, and he's like, and they run everything, and he broke out, and he's all gaunt and frail, and like they're coming to bring his food, and the door opens, and they're like, here's your food, Dorsey. And then he shoves the guy out of the way, and he runs to the computer, and he hits Control-C, Control-V, and enemies say enter, and they're like, no, and they grab him, and they're dragging him back, and he's like, no, freedom.
And you can see the Matrix as he's being pulled back.
And they throw him back in the room. Don't you ever pull something like that again. And then, the other Twitter execs run in like, what did Dorsey do? He escaped from his cell and he tweeted out Rothbard. And then they were like, oh, can we delete it? No.
The next time he testifies in front of Congress, we'll have to watch as he blinks to see if he blinks SOS or something like that.
He's got like a brain chip. It's like a thing on his temple, and it like shorts out for a second, and he's like, I can think again. And he goes to the computer and he sends it, and then they're like, oh guys, you got to reboot Dorsey's mind control chip. Pew, and he goes,
would it be like the V chip from South Park?
Yeah. So of all of the people. But I'll say this. When it comes to Jack Dorsey, I talked to him, before the Rogan podcast, and he was talking about blockchain, and I think he's really naive. I think he doesn't know. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I think he's, to be completely honest, nice guy, a bit duplicitous, right place and right time. Twitter is not particularly complicated. He said, we discovered Twitter, we didn't invent Twitter, things like that. And when I was talking to him, before we did the Rogan podcast, like literally like minutes before, he was saying how he really wanted blockchain-based social media. And he was like, that way, once it's there, it's like there forever. And I'm like, that sounds horrible. That sounds like the worst idea ever. Like, imagine you're 15, and you're like, I'm going to post a picture of my ass because I'm edgy and I got 10 followers and I don't care. And then you're 30 and you're like, I got 50,000 followers now and you're a sports commentator. And then they're like, couldn't help but notice in your immutable ledger, there's a picture of your ass. It's like, I know I can't it's in the blockchain. What am I supposed to do about it? It's there forever.
In theory, what that should mean is that we all kind of get the get out of jail free for doing dumb stuff. But what in practice it means is if you did dumb stuff that the elite don't approve of, you can get canceled at absolutely any point in time in your life. But if they're okay with the dumb stuff, you were part of an Antifa attack or something. Oh yeah, that's fine. We don't care. That's fine. You get a nice Reuters article.
You were once a noble activist fighting for justice. Tell me how that went. Well, I threw a bunch of bottles at people and then we went around smashing things. Oh, wow.
Sounds like fun.
Sounds like you've accomplished a lot in your life. Mm-hmm. Yes, it was hard, but we burned down some bars. That's basically the history of these people when they're older. There's a video that went viral of a journalist who is trying to cover what's going on in Portland, and this Antifa gets in her face and says that you were endangering people by spreading COVID, which is like the craziest thing for Antifa, I guess, to say. They're pro-state, whatever. And then they physically attack her, throw her to the ground, spray her with paint and mace or whatever. These people, they're effectively, the brown shirts, they're enforcing state edict or whatever. They march around these cities doing literally nothing, believing CNN and thinking they oppose the state when they're doing everything the state would want them to do.
Yeah, I mean, the brown shirts entirely, they say, oh, we're the original anti-fascists, and they post images. You'll see idiots like people at CNN posting images of D-Day landing and like, anti-fascists, and then comparing them, Chris Cuomo, to Antifa. And I'm like, no, these are the worst of the gutter trash who go attack ordinary people on the street and try to bully people just because they think or say different things. Mm-hmm. I don't support anybody doing that. I don't care what ideology you've got, if you're going and just walking up to people and attacking them on the street, you're in the wrong. I think historically speaking, we've proven that.
Do you see when they were attacking people who were protesting COVID restrictions? I'm like, isn't that weird? The state comes out and makes like Bill de Blasio decrees something that's like not even a law. It's a decree from an executor. And they're like, we're going to defend that. And so you come out and be like, there was actually an event happened in D.C. where a bunch of conservatives came down to protest corporate censorship. And Antifa showed up, calling them fascists, and started attacking people. And I'm like, yo, are they pro-corporation? Is like Antifa pro... Oh, dude, they're fascists.
Yeah, they're pro-censorship, and the whole left is, including the major media.
Well, check this out. Antifa, I used to say this wasn't the case. I used to say Antifa is not fascist because they do not agree with like traditional values or nationalism. But based on Mussolini's definition of the corporation and the state, the merger, Antifa are legitimately fascists. They support corporate censorship. They have beaten people in defense of corporations, and they've beaten people in defense of the state. It is absolutely insane to see that. And this is the game they play. It's like with Ibram Kendi in Critical Race Applied Principles. He calls himself anti-racist. And then when we had Papa John on the show, he kept calling himself anti-racist. And I told him, like, anti-racist means you support discrimination based on race. And he didn't get it. And he kept saying anti-racist. And I'm like, when people want to use it against you, they will. Ibram Kendi supports discrimination based on race. Critical race theory supports discrimination based on race. And they call that anti-racism because it's a word game to manipulate people who don't pay attention.
Right. It's
Antifa,
racism.
same thing.
Yeah. We've gone full circle where now the very people who go around saying, oh, you can't be racist, are then going around saying racist stuff. You can get shut down on Twitter or social media for saying anything racist in some groups, but not against others. And it's the game. Look at the anti-Semitism you see on these sites is just off the charts. And you see it not just on social media, but on, in schools and colleges, universities. The Jewish, these Jewish students everywhere are now a target when they go to college. That's the exact kind of thing that we look back at history books and say, gee, that was awful when it happened in the 1930s. Why are we allowing it to happen here in this era?
Yeah. I love, I'm just reading, I have the Anatomy of the State pulled up, and just for Jack Dorsey to tweet something referring to the state as parasitic and sapping production and stuff like that, I'm like, wow. Spicy. Maybe he should apply those principles to the companies that he runs. Maybe things would get a little bit better. But I hate to say it, it just seems like things are getting worse and worse. And even with what's going on in Afghanistan and everyone kind of turning their back on Biden, it's not in any way to imply that things will improve.
No, I mean, I think, unfortunately, look, I thought we shouldn't be in Afghanistan anywhere near the length of time we were. I mean, if you follow anything about history, we changed the mission. Our military is really good at going and kicking somebody's ass, just is. But they're not good at forcing you to come into the 21st century and embrace Western values. It's an unfair ask of anybody. And so they went from being war fighters to prison guards and social workers. And that's just, I don't care whether you're carrying the AK-47 or M16 or whatever you're carrying. If you're trying to convince somebody to join the 21st century when he can't even read, that's just the wrong mission.
That's why it's a 100-year mission. You have to raise several generations and instill in them like a norm. But to go into a country where there's we're there for 20 years. If you went to the American people and said, we want to be here for 100 years to colonize and reclaim, people would be like, get out of here. They would not support that.
Well, it's also geographically really difficult. Afghanistan is a landlocked nation. We're the world's greatest navy. Okay, that's just bad dynamics. So I mean, if you're going to do it, and it didn't work well when we did it in Vietnam. I mean, so because you have to look. It's just like when you go buy a house. I drive out here to get the wonderful compound, see the nice area. When you buy a house, you buy a neighborhood. Well, Afghanistan's in a really bad neighborhood. It's got Pakistan next door, and they're run by Looney Tunes people. It's got China next door. They're even worse. Russia's nearby. It is.
Iran is next
door.
door.
Yeah, it's a mess, and it's exactly the same problem. Vietnam had when you've got China, a nation now of 1.3 billion people nearby, and you're another nation trying to end up with a sane destiny. It doesn't matter whether you're Taiwan or Afghanistan. You're going to have trouble.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.